to start by welcoming everybody to this evening's town board meeting, the town of Amherst. I'd ask everybody to please. Okay. I would like to welcome everybody to this evening's town board meeting in the town of Amherst of Monday, April 28th, 2025. Tonight's meeting we're holding in the memory of two members of the Amherst family that have passed away. First, Lieutenant John Bones Redenbach, life member of the East Amherst Fire Company for almost 40 years. My understanding is that he passed away during a call, and certainly anybody who is a member of or works with volunteer fire knows how tight-knit those groups are. We'd like to express our sympathy to his family and to East Amherst Fire on their loss. Second is Mark Bosch. Mark is a retired Amherst Highway Department employee that served the town of Amherst for over 35 years. We again extend our sympathies to the gentleman's family and to our highway department. We did have a request for invocation this evening, so I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Marinucci.
As we Catholics laid to rest our Pope this past weekend, I just want to call to mind what he stood for in terms of not just for Catholics, but for people across the world, in terms of inclusivity, spreading love, and peace and kindness, and may his soul forever rest in peace.
Amen. And I would ask everybody please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sir. We're so gallantly stream, and the rockets red flare, singing. Oh, say us that strangle better again. For the free and the home of free. Okay, I would ask our town clerk to please read a roll.
Supervisor Copa.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Present.
Councilmember Berger.
Here.
Councilmember Zuccalla.
Here.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from Monday, April 7th, 2025. I'll motion to adopt them as they appeared.
Second.
All in favor? This afternoon in work session, we extended proclamations. First, May is Construction Safety Month, and second, it was Deputy Supervisor Lavin. I'm going to let him explain what that proclamation was for.
Thank you, Supervisor. The Samato family has donated a small parcel of land in the Evergreen neighborhood off Tonawanda Creek. The town of Amherst, in conjunction with State Senator Ryan, are hoping to get a playground built for that subdivision and community, but that process began with the Samato family so generously donating that parcel.
First item on our agenda is Resolution 402. It's a public hearing on the parking restriction on Steinway Court and Maple Road. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Chris Schregel. I act as the traffic safety coordinator for the town of Amherst. As the supervisor mentioned, the first public hearing before you tonight is for a parking restriction on Steinway Court at Maple Road. This was brought forth by a Steinway resident where it was reviewed by the Traffic Safety Board at its December 2024 meeting, as well as a little bit of follow-up in January 2025. For those unfamiliar with Steinway, it's located just off of Maple Road on the south side, just east of North Forest Road. The resident concerns voiced by multiple residents of that subdivision are that vehicles are parking on one or more sides of Steinway Court at the intersection of Maple Road. This narrows the roadway and creates a risk of head-on collisions, especially with vehicles turning quickly off Maple Road. Maple Road is signed at 45 miles per hour in that section, so they do whip around there quite at a fast pace. Danger is intensified at time of school bus drop-off and pickup, as the school bus is also located at that intersection. The request is for a no standing zone on both sides of Steinway Court immediately at the Maple Road intersection. The Traffic Safety Board reviewed, and they measured a roadway width of 26 feet wide. That's slightly narrower than the current 28-foot wide standard. They also reviewed the differences between a no parking zone versus a no standing zone, and ultimately decided that the latter, the no standing zone, is more suitable in this location. They acknowledged that other nearby streets along Maple Road also have a no parking here to corner for similar reasons, and they reached out to the immediately impacted homeowners on the corner of Steinway and Maple to get their input. Of note, only one responded, and they were positive of a restriction of some nature. Ultimately, the Traffic Safety Board is recommending, and this is the resolution tonight, that vehicles are hereby no longer permitted to stand at any time on both sides of Steinway Court for a distance of 58 feet from the south curb line of Maple Road. You might be questioning why 58 was selected. That gets you to the streetlight poles in a manner where we can put the sign right on those poles and eliminate some sign clutter. And also it leaves very little space between the light pole and the driveway where a vehicle really can't fit there. So in essence, you're getting a restriction from the stop sign all the way to the driveways. With that, I'll open it up for questions or comments.
All right, I'm going to start with this board. Are there questions or comments from the board first? Questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'm going to motion to adopt the findings consistent with traffic and safety and place the parking restriction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is public hearing on Resolution 403. It's a Homecrest Drive and Hillcrest Drive always stop intersection. A motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you again. Chris Schregel, Traffic Safety Coordinator. So this next one is for an all-way stop at Homecrest and Hillcrest, where this was brought forth by a Homecrest resident, where it was reviewed at the August and October 2024 meetings. This intersection is located just south of Maple, as well as just south of the Sweet Home Middle School and just east of North Bailey Avenue. You can tell from this diagram, this is how it's currently signed with stop signs on the northbound and southbound approaches. The resident request that was brought forward was that there's concern for this intersection only being a two-way stop and not an all-way stop. The resident reported numerous near misses at this intersection due to the confusion and is requesting the town review and intersections review all the signage to see if they can improve safety. So first, the Traffic Safety Board looked at the signage, acknowledged that it's only two ways, and furthermore gave a recommendation to switch these signs around. That's on the southbound approach. That stop sign should be closer to the intersection and perhaps either consolidate or move that no parking down a little bit. They also looked at crashes in this area where it was only reported as one crash and it was unrelated to traffic control at the intersection. This is somebody coming out of a driveway. They also look at geometry in their reviews. In this situation, they identified that Hillcrest Drive is offset between the north and south approaches. This is seen as undesirable. They also look at approach speeds and volumes, where they place counters on all legs of the intersection, and it was determined that the approach speed was fairly low at 23 to 24 miles per hour. Hillcrest had the most approach volume at just over 1,600 vehicles per day. That was Hillcrest. This is Homecrest. It's 970. At an intersection of the street with the most approach volume is considered the major. In this case, Hillcrest is the major. Per the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, stop signs should be installed in a manner that minimizes the number of vehicles having to stop, and it should not be installed on the major street unless justified by a traffic engineering study. So what I just mentioned as Hillcrest being the major, according to the book, this is not signed in the manner that they provide guidance on. They also looked at the stop sign warrants, and I won't go through the analysis, but I can tell you that the numbers for volume do not meet the all-way stop volume warrants. And while those criteria specific to volume were not met, the MUTCD does allow for other criteria and engineering judgment to be used. Given the misalignment of the geometry, the proximity to the middle school, and the pedestrian routing, and that the current signage is stopping the major and not the minor, the Traffic Safety Board went ahead and recommended that all legs of that intersection be stop controlled. That diagram showing again how it would be signed, and the resolution reads: the intersection of Homecrest Drive and Hillcrest Drive is hereby designated as a multi-way stop intersection, and stop signs shall be controlled on all legs of the intersection. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, questions or comments from the board first? Questions or comments from the audience? See none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And next, I'm going to motion to adopt the resolution consistent with traffic and safety's findings and adopt the always stop.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 404, a local law to amend Chapter 175 of the Town of Amherst taxation. This is the ADU exemption, accessory dwelling unit. I'll motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
So as the supervisor mentioned, this is a public hearing to consider a new local real property tax law for accessory dwelling units. This law is proposed as a new offering from New York State. It was created in 2024. I'm Lori Stillwell. I'm the Community Development Director, and with me is Liliana Visca. She's our Planning Department intern and did much of the research for the setup of this local law, and she's a candidate of BAED at the School of Architecture and Planning at UB. So just to give you a little bit of background, what we're talking about here, accessory dwelling units are smaller independent residential dwelling unit located on the same lot as a standalone single-family home. And the diagram there kind of shows the variety of ways that they could be constructed, although Amherst zoning code really limits how the different types that could exist. They're commonly referred to as an in-law suite or a granny flat. They've been around for a very long time. They're just something new that the town is looking into to address some of our housing issues. In 2023, the town sought and received $2 million grant from New York State Homes and Community Renewal to start an accessory dwelling unit pilot program. And so the intent of that program was to offer incentives to homeowners to develop ADUs following the increased interest in these types of housing units post-COVID. So we heard a lot during the COVID timeframe of folks that wanted to host aging parents in place. And so that's something we looked into at that time and received this grant. The other thing this grant aims to do is look at how these housing units can fit within our community. So this just overviews some of the goals and intent of the program itself. And really, as I mentioned, they're a means to generate additional housing options in town. They're typically smaller than a regular single-family home, so they can bring in more affordable rents, or they can offer support to folks looking to age in place and have caregivers close by on site. They can also provide rent for homeowners who are housing cost burdened. So these are some of the things we were trying to aim for with this program. And just a little bit more on the grant, so I can pitch it right now. The grant itself comes from the state. The program provides up to $125,000 as a forgivable loan to construct or rehab an existing ADU. Eligible households have to be within 100% area median income, and the program really is structured to help homeowners from soup to nuts with everything in constructing such units. So we've been operating this program for about 2 years now, and one of the biggest findings we've had, and the reason we're really proposing this real property tax law, is the majority of applicants and people seeking these units are really doing so to support aging parents or adult disabled children. It's really become a possible affordable housing complex type unit for people who need ADA type structures as they age in place, or for their adult disabled children. This is the vast majority of applicants that I see. Oops, did I go forward? Oh, one more, sorry. Another takeaway here has been that just the sheer cost of construction has skyrocketed. We're seeing $300 a square foot in construction costs now. That's double what it was in 2020. I used to pay $150 a square foot in residential construction in 2020. So even with these types of incentives of this grant program, it's really not enough to cover these types of projects, and the majority of our households are having to put in significant personal resources or seek financing. And because of these financial conditions right now, we've had, of our 12 projects, we had 4 awardees that have dropped out. We currently have a second round of applications open, and that's on a rolling basis. One more thing on the background here. So this chart just outlines the kind of costs people are looking at. It's based on square foot. It assumes $300 a square foot construction with a 10-year HELOC at 7%. HELOC is a home equity line of credit. Soft costs are included. So as you can see from the chart, there are situations where an ADA unit needs 700 square feet. Even with rental income, they're really barely breaking even. And so this is one of the reasons we're trying to bring forth this incentive would be to incentivize and help folks who have the means and need for these units and need to have some kind of tiny financial benefit to move forward with their projects. Lily's going to go over next the research that went into the proposed law and how it works.
So there were 2 other property class exemptions that we looked at. One was 421F, and that was the exemption of capital improvements to residential buildings and certain new construction. We also looked at 421P, which is the parent law of 421P ADU, which is what we're proposing. 421F only lasted 8 years and may have been too slight an impact to impact homeowners to encourage ADU construction. It also offered exemptions to other residential improvements, such as building a swimming pool or updating a kitchen. 421P offered a 25-year exemption and was intended for much larger affordable housing projects than we're intending with this law. Finally, we settled on 421P ADU, which was found to be the most compatible with homeowner needs and local housing. And this was decided by a committee comprised of town staff involved in ADU construction and property tax exemptions. We found out that 421P ADU offered a reasonable exemption to homeowners without having a significant impact on the town's revenue. We also found that it was specific to ADU construction and prohibited the exemption of other forms of improvements that could lawfully fall under the other 2 exemptions. And finally, we concluded that the administrative burden was manageable and warranted to achieve the goals of ADU development in Amherst. So just outlining a little bit further the law that we're proposing. According to 421P ADU, the property must be exclusively residential for up to 2 families for 10 years. The total value of the improvement cannot exceed $3,000. Must exceed $3,000. The market value of the property, however, cannot increase more than $200,000 as a result of the ADU. And construction must begin after the adoption of the exemption of the local law, and this is not applicable to existing units or property taxes being collected. And according to the Amherst zoning code, ADUs are limited to one per lot. They must be located on a property that's owner occupied, and they cannot be used as short-term rentals. The exemption structure of 421 PADU is 10 years. It does not, it only delays the increased property taxes that would be added due to the construction of the ADU. It does not decrease the amount of property taxes currently being collected by the town. However, it could be a significant enough increase to encourage a homeowner to construct an ADU. The exemption is structured as is shown in the chart. It is 100% for the first 5 years. It decreases 25% for the next 3 years and 10% in the final 2 years.
So one of the other things we looked at, just to kind of show you how much money we're talking about here, this is a case study of one of our residents who's coming through the ADU program. This project is a 740 square foot unit, which will yield a construction cost of $207,000. What that translates to in the actual increase in assessed values, in the Amherst School District, it will be $59,125. That's the increase in assessment. And then to translate that into the tax base, the tax revenue, it would be $1,359. And that assumes the school district and the county would also adopt this local law. So that's not a ton of money, and the town share is a smaller portion of that. As Lily explained, it would be exempted at 100% for the first 5 years, and then it would decrease after that, by which time, after the 10-year mark, it's fully 100% on the tax roll. So we're really looking at this as an offset of tax revenue for a 10-year period that's phased in over time. It's not really reducing existing tax roll. It's not a huge amount of money, but we think that it's enough to support households that are seeking these units. And so there's just one other thing I want to mention. In the local law, as it's written up, there is a Scribner's error that we're going to correct this evening. So they're all references to 421P parentheses 2 should be corrected to 421-P. Any other questions?
Thank you. All right, questions or comments from the board first? Councilman?
I have one. I noticed, excuse me. I noticed earlier there was a comment that said the value of the home after the improvements cannot exceed $200,000. Well, I've received comments as a councilman from people whose assessment has risen, even if they haven't put that much money into their home. If your neighbors put significant amounts into their homes, your assessment may rise just because the neighborhood rose. What happens if your house does go over 200?
Then they wouldn't be eligible. That's a state requirement in how the exemption is written. So this would only, once it's adopted, homeowners would have to apply for it. And it would only go into effect for units that are newly constructed after the date the law is enacted. So if they don't meet that definition, then they wouldn't be eligible for the exemption.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions from this board? Councilwoman?
Hi. As you know, very, very excited about this. As a former Commissioner of Senior Services, we also receive state funding for children over the age of 21 with disabilities, and we heard frequently that finding affordable care, housing for adult children or for parents moving home was very, very difficult. So I'm thrilled that we're looking at these opportunities, and I thank you for making sure we hit on the point of these ADUs in the town of Amherst. I also want to make very clear, I know you said it in the presentation here, that we're only exempting the increased taxes, that we will still be collecting what is currently on the house. So if they didn't add anything to they didn't add an ADU, it would stay the same in what we're collecting. And finally, it's not a huge amount of money to us, town of Amherst taxpayers, but for someone who's just invested $100,000, $200,000 into building one of these, $1,300 per year in taxes would make a difference. So I commend you. I thank you for the research and the time that is put into this, but I'm thrilled that we're offering an opportunity for affordable housing in this situation in Amherst and trying to find ways for those who may be over that 100% AMI to have some sort of relief to encourage this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments from the board? Okay, comments or questions from the audience? Please come forward. Just going to ask you to state your name and address for record.
No.
I would like to ask each of you women, if you stand a little bit closer, we could discuss. The only reason
could-
that I
yeah,
would,
Yeah, could you,
You have
you
to- yeah.
speak into the microphone? I'm sorry. You have to address the board. We will refer all the questions to them at
do you
the
women
after.
want to stand here then so I could look at your faces
No,
and
just-
talk with you? Properly?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
this is a public hearing, and in public hearings, this is the opportunity for you to provide information to the board.
Oh, I'm
That you
sorry.
can ask them to ask some questions,
All
but it's
right.
not
I
appropriate
thought
to,
these women would be
Thank
most
you.
able to answer.
thank you.
We'll
Mary
begin.
Jane Zach,
Go ahead.
Bauman Road, Williamsville, for probably 40 years. So more importantly, I've been a successful property manager for large properties, small properties, for probably 35 years, as I mentioned, successfully. So here's a couple of my questions. I don't think we should just approve this nilly-willy today. It should be a little bit more understood by at least a committee of 3 to 5 people who are successful in property management. And then I would have a list of questions to ask these women relative to the research, to begin with, where will this be located? Also, another person would be from Belmont Shelter on the board or on this committee, so that we would understand more about the selection process. And there's just really the management issues, if there are any, and the selection of those individuals who will be residing in these properties that would have the board permission to take advantage of the taxes and the beauty of having a brand new home. And also the differences in the square footage and how that will impact the community in its entirety and one another as homeowners. So yes, and the obvious, I would almost think, is that I would be more than happy to sit as part of this, whether I'd be just observing or giving some input, of a good foundation, a strong foundation for my town of Amherst. Thank you.
So
So
before
we're
we
gonna-
turn it,
I was gonna say, I'm gonna hold questions until we get through a few, and then ask Lori to respond to some of the questions. Okay. Thank you. It- I understand, though. Go ahead.
Jane Cox, Harlem Road. It was not clear to me from the agenda whether you're being asked to approve both the local law amending Chapter 175 and the proposal for the local property tax law, Section 421P-ADU, which explains the ADU process. So is this for both this public hearing?
This public hearing is specifically for the local law on Chapter 175.
Just, so what is the proposed local law that's attached to the agenda? Has that been approved, or is that just for background, or is that to be approved yet in the future?
Yeah, so we're gonna go through that question and a whole bunch of other questions down in a second. Shane, do you have any more questions?
I do have more
Go ahead. Okay,
questions.
go ahead.
Mostly pertaining to the proposed local law, which apparently we're not discussing, but my concern with it, I am in favor of the project as it is, but my concern has been the way this has been written to allow for rental to non-family or non-relative people just for rental income, when you're allowing these units to be built under certain conditions, which are all in this law, but allowing them to be built in residential neighborhoods if you have property with a whatever zoning it's going to be, and of the size of the lot that they're going to be allowed to be built on. And I also would like to know, in relationship to that situation where you do have rentals, who in the town is going to be enforcing this to make sure that they are owner occupied? And what happens when the owner sells the property, which contains a small rental unit? Do all the exemptions disappear? And then we have a double in a neighborhood of single-family homes. So that's some of the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, sure. We'll
Good evening, Town Board members. My name is Don Smith, North Long. I echo everything Jane just said. I think it's important that the process is for the benefit of the community involved and not necessarily for a profit-making process that people want to make money out of this deal. It should be for the benefit of the people who are occupying these points, these things. It occurs to me that this has a possibility of increasing the density of certain communities if it's overused in certain communities. That we may have a residential community which is not properly zoned for the amount of occupancy that it gets. So we want to know what zonings is this going to be allowed in, and can you change that over time by amending the local law or changing any law to actually change the zoning places where it's allowed? So this may morph and change to the point where maybe it isn't appropriate for the particular community that it's in. I see the benefit for a town which has often said it doesn't have enough space, but that's sort of a national problem, frankly. So you're not going to get around national problems by small local laws. That's not going to work. You can mitigate it slightly, but it's only going to help you a small amount. So this is only going to be a niche solution to a bigger problem. It's not going to be a global solution. That much I can see. So I'm interested in what happens, as Jane said. I build an ADU, I have something on there, and all of a sudden, X number of years down the line, I want to sell. What kicks in? How does the process work? How does it protect the community in which the ADU is located? What is the case if an ADU is put in and it causes problems in a community which you did not foresee it happening? What's the process of remediation of problems if you get into them? I assume there's got to be a complaint filed at some point. And how is that adjudicated? Who does it? When does it get done? What happens if it's found to be a problem? Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Mike Kozlowski. I'm on Fruhoff. I just want to say that I'm a big fan of ADUs. In general, they're a great way to lower housing costs and to get more density into a town, which I think is a good thing because it increases the tax base. It increases the, let's say, maybe from a libertarian perspective, perhaps that's too much, but like, don't tell me what to do with my property. If I have the space, I should be allowed to build a little home for my grown-up post-college age kid who can't quite afford to go anywhere else. Like there's no reason why not to. So I support anything that the town can do to encourage that sort of development. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Lori, could you start just by, sure.
Yes, good evening, Sean Hopkins. This topic really, really interests me, and I'm not here on behalf of any particular client. I'm here more as a resident of the town of Amherst. I want to say unequivocally, I support this program. Not only the town of Amherst, but Western New York, New York State, and the entire nation has a housing crisis. There's no denying that fact. Can Amherst solve that problem by itself? No. but you can implement local solutions such as this that will assist. And by way of background, ADUs are being used successfully throughout the country, primarily out west, but if you look at examples in Denver, Seattle, Washington State, et cetera, you'll see they're becoming more and more prevalent. And in terms of why is there this particular housing crisis in Amherst and everywhere else, I did read recently in the Wall Street Journal, it was an article based on new home sales compared to overall transactions. And in the 50 largest metropolitan statistical areas, the percentage of new builds out of total real estate transactions in Erie County MSA was 50 out of 50, meaning we have no new housing supply. The benefits of this are very, very clear. The tax exemption is needed. You need to create an incentive. The question that always comes up in connection with these hearings on this topic is why not limit it to family members only? Legitimate question, right? The answer to that is, say, for example, I had an elderly mom. This option was not available then. If it had been, maybe I would have utilized it. But if you go ahead and make that tremendous investment, $300 per square foot, and they don't live 10 years, they don't live 5 years, they don't live 2 years, you can never justify making that investment. So I think there's a great solution. I give a lot of credit to the planning department for all the homework they've done on this. And respectfully, as a town resident, I would hope that you would adopt this legislation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lori, could you just explain first the attached ADU law, a little bit about the zoning and the town committee that's already been working on this?
Sure.
But
So
before we get there, make clear that this law doesn't change the ADU law as passed and the areas that are approving it and those things. This is only for the builds.
correct. So this, what the public hearing is on, is the potential adoption of a new real property tax law to offer a property tax exemption on the ADU that would be constructed after it is adopted. So it is only on that. I only talked about the ADU program to give some background, but we're not talking about anything amending with zoning or anything like that. It is only a real property tax law exemption. Now, in order to set up what we could do as an incentive, Lily helped put together a committee of several department heads that looked at and researched what types of exemptions could be utilized and towards all types of housing. And then we narrowed it to ADUs. And so that's what she kind of gave an overview of. We dove into several things and we proposed several options to this committee, included Councilwoman Berger, the assessor's office, building department, planning department. I'm probably forgetting somebody. Anyway, and I know this is obviously close to the heart of the Disabilities Committee as well. They've been asking for something like this for a while. So we drafted template laws that fit within what was allowed, and we brought it back to the committee with some conditions and had a discussion on it. And what's resulting is what the committee has chosen, which is to adopt the law as it exists from New York State law. We also found out that Ulster County was looking at adding conditions onto the New York State law, and that's typically not allowed unless you have an action by state legislature. They didn't structure the exemption that way, where we could add additional criteria to the exemption. So we felt that, is this law appropriate for what we're looking for? Should we pass it as is? And that's what's proposed tonight, is how it's written in New York State law. And then, so that's kind of the background on how we got to the point of now holding our public comment process on a proposed local law and taking public input for the board to consider and whether or not they want to adopt it. Going on to the zoning conversation. So when we first applied for the grant, the town considered, we originally intended to get the funding to learn more about ADUs and how they would fit and then propose zoning amendments. And in the process of setting up the program, we realized that our zoning was so restrictive that you really couldn't do anything to build an ADU. Like I said, most of the people looking for ADUs are looking for ADA, accessible ADUs. We had limited them at 500 square feet. 700 square feet is really the minimum to meet ADA for an accessory dwelling unit. So it wasn't really worth it to move forward with a program without amending our zoning. So what we did is we did a few changes to the zoning, And what we decided to do through those changes was to run the program as it exists, learn more about how these showcase projects could fit within the context of our single-family neighborhoods, and then make recommendations further on the zoning. So I know I've heard from some folks who were hoping that they could convert their above garage units that exist currently, but those are technically not allowed in certain districts. So the bulk of what we've really done with our zoning is we've limited the ADU size to a percentage of the principal structure. So they can't go smaller than 500 square feet, and they can't go larger than 900 square feet, but it's still 49% of the actual square footage of the principal house. What that means for most of the ADU program clients is I'm seeing an average size of 600 to 700 square feet, and really one bedroom. So that's really one bedroom, one bath. That's really what we're seeing. They're not huge. They're meant to be ancillary to the principal structure. It's a special use permit process, which means that they have to apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals to get approved. There are no variances issued. There are conditions associated with that, and the board has to approve that. That process is a 2-year renewal. That means if you, as a homeowner, and you put in an ADU, if you're renting to renters that are causing all sorts of havoc in your neighborhood, they can complain to the town board and the ZBA, and they can choose to not renew your special use permit. And that's what gives you your certificate of occupancy. So we know we're a university town. We know that there are issues that happen in town associated with that, but we tried to structure the rezoning of ADUs in a manner that could balance all of the situations that could arise.
Can you answer the question, what happens upon sale of property, both
Yep.
to the tax exemption and on the special use permit?
So for special use permit, they can continue the ADU if they sell it, as long as it's homeowner occupied. So somebody can't buy a unit, live in it, create an ADU, and then sell it to, an investor owner. Or turn it into an Airbnb. So that's not how the zoning is structured. They can continue the special use permit if they meet all the conditions going forward. And again, it's a 2-year renewal for that process. And then as far as the exemption goes, there was a restriction, you said? There's a restriction related to you could carry it forward if it was a family member that you're selling to.
Okay. Properties, property enforcement by building departments, same as other projects?
Yep.
Okay. And can you talk about the selection process for the grants?
The selection process for the grant. So the grant it has a lot of state rules. It's a state grant program, so they set up most of the rules. The primary being that the awarding household can't have more than 100% area median income. So they're already kind of middle income of Amherst to start. And then from there, they have to, they cannot rent it as a short-term rental. It has to be homeowner occupied. In most of our zoning districts, it has to be attached, R3, it has to be attached to the principal structure. And then they cannot encroach into setbacks and side yards and all of that.
And the grant is a forgivable loan, so
Correct.
that can be pulled back should they fail to meet that criteria.
Yes. So the grant is a forgivable loan. It's $125,000. It is forgiven over at 10% a year over 10 years. They have to rent it. They have to occupy the ADU for the full 10 years. So there is some enforcement of occupancy. They don't have to charge rent, but they have to occupy the unit.
All right. Other questions from this board? Other questions or comments in the audience? Board.
Mary Jane Zach, as I heard coming through this line, to the women, you really did your homework. Well, that is fine. However, there's so many pitfalls in between. I highly suggest that there be a compilation of the details for further discussion This should not be jumped into because I have witnessed and been a part of what problems can and will occur unless you're very stringent upon what your rules are, implementation and the force of implementation by the individuals able to do this and oversee it. So that's what I want to say is to have people entrusted with the capability that when someone says they will this or that and do not, who will take charge and how will it be carried out?
Thank you. So, Lori, last question. The process of award involves on the grant or the loan is state award, but we do have other ADUs that aren't applying for grants throughout the town.
I just want to clarify, so the public hearing tonight isn't on the grant process at this time. But for the exemption, it would only apply to newly created ADUs after the exemption is enacted, and the homeowner would have to apply for it. So assessor's office is not going to automatically grant it. They would have to come in and apply for the exemption. And as of right now, we have 2 ADUs in town, and we have another 2 that might be coming, that have been permitted but are not under construction yet. So
I want to clarify.
out of 59,000
that's
housing units.
Under the grant, we have ADUs all over town currently. We have them in many neighborhoods. I walk past a dozen of them when I go on a daily walk in my neighborhood. We have lots of them in the town already that have gotten.
Those properties would not be eligible for this
Right.
exemption.
I know, I'm just pointing out, because there have been a lot of questions about ADUs, that we have them and there have not been issues. If there's been an issue, people report it to the building department, just like we do on any homeowner issue.
Okay. All right.
I have one more thing.
Sure.
Thank you. So I know that we are not looking at the restrictions on building an ADU or anything there, that type zoning thing. We're just looking at this property tax exemption. But Lori, I just ask, you held a training, I think it was last month, I don't remember exactly, but in that you spoke to some of the people who requested or looked into the grant, and they didn't meet eligibility to get any of the grant because of that AMI and where they fall, whether it be their pensions, whether it be their whatever income they have. And so we were looking at other ways because those people just, I believe, and I don't want to speak for you, but go ahead and say that they chose not to even pursue the ADU because without a grant, they didn't have the opportunity to be able to build. If
Correct.
That's correct. Okay.
Yep.
So if you want to speak to kind of what you're seeing in the people who are interested in building for those, why we're looking at another way to help them.
Yeah, so just to stress that again, the bulk of the applicants I'm seeing and the interest is really on kind of the accessibility, disabled housing side of things. There's a lot of folks that are looking for to support elderly aging parents or elderly folks themselves looking to offer a second housing unit on site to attract a caregiver that will be available to them. We're also seeing that on the disabled side for adult disabled children, we're seeing a lot of folks who are really interested in this model so that they could create a trust in which once they're gone, the trust would provide rental income to help support their adult disabled child through the remainder of their life. So it's interested in those types of scenarios. That's where the bulk of the interest is. And the financing structure for those scenarios is tight. It's, they're on Social Security, there's limited income available, and this is just, and this has come up several times. One of the first questions I get is, what is this going to do to my assessment? What is it going to do to my property taxes? And they have to factor that cost in because a lot of them are seeking commercial financing. So they're going to get a loan for construction, even for gap financing. The grant doesn't cover all of it, and that monthly payment matters. And so that's why this tax exemption matters as well.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, thank you very much. I know this has been pretty stress tested within our committees. I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those committees did include the assessor's office, along with multiple other department heads. This time, I'm going to motion to adopt local law to amend Chapter 175 of the Town of Amherst Taxation ADU exemption.
Second.
On the question, I would ask our town. You're on. It's on. That one's always on. Yep.
Okay. On the question, I want to make sure that we understand that the Scrivener's error, and that's how we approve it.
So, yeah, so on the question, we are, again, acknowledging the Scrivener's error where it says section 421-P asterisk 2, it should say 421-P parentheses 2.
No parentheses two,
Just
just
two.
421-P, and in any spot there, it says that throughout the law gets the correction.
Somebody gave me a correction that had
No,
parentheses.
we had that correction, but then we corrected the correction.
Correction.
Unfortunately, the way the law reads doesn't necessarily match, and this is New York State, it's not us.
So
We're
this is
trying to
four-
follow
so
that.
it'll
This
say
is our legal opinion.
421-P.
Yes.
Got it. In all circumstances, parentheses or asterisks. Okay. With that Scrivener's error acknowledged, and there's a second already, I would ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa,
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Yes.
Councilmember Berger,
Yes.
Councilmember Zucala,
Yes.
and Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
Okay, next item on, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 405, the alienation of a portion of 1265 Smith Road. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Good evening, members of the town board. Daniel Lachowski, Assistant Planning Director. Tonight's public hearing is in furtherance of the town's request to the state legislature to alienate a portion of designated parkland at 1265 Smith Road. The area in question is a roughly 49-acre green space that the town acquired from the development community as a donation. The town then designated it as parkland. It is constrained by freshwater wetlands, and it is 90% forested area. The town has recently entered into a lease agreement with Verizon Wireless to lease approximately 0.89 acres of that subject parcel for the establishment of a telecommunications facility to address a gap in service coverage. And I think everyone is aware of the current gap in cellular communications at the northeast end of our community. This will provide a gap in that service. The lease area for the tower is 100 by 100, and it also encompasses a 30-foot wide access easement, and within that access easement is a 12-foot wide access driveway. The Zoning Board of Appeals approved a special use permit for this project on October 16th. A public hearing was held, all interested parties were notified, and they granted a special use permit for the establishment of a 119-foot tall monopole tower. This is a illustration of what the monopole tower will look like. It has opportunity for 2 additional carriers. Again, it's well hidden. It's entirely within the forest community. As a requirement of the state legislature, this board is to have a public hearing, which is occurring this evening. Just to remind the board, you had already granted permission for this alienation request and have given the town supervisor the authority in conjunction with the town attorney to effectuate the final alienation with the state legislature. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions of the town board or of the audience.
Okay, first comments or questions from the town board? I'll just say that, I mean, the cellular communications gap has been pretty well documented. It presents a life safety issue for us as a town in that area. Verizon is the town's cellular provider. We do need to establish communications and quality communications in that area of the community, which is one of the reasons why we've undertaken a very lengthy process. With that, are there questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next item on the agenda is a development action. It's Resolution 406. It's the seeker determination on 1692 Maple Road, Z 2024-04. I'm going to motion to adopt the seeker findings at this time.
Second.
All in favor? Next item is Resolution 343, the adoption of local law to amend the zoning map for 1692 Maple Road, Z 2024-04. I'm going to motion to adopt the local law as it appeared.
Second.
On the question,
There are several conditions for this resolution. 1 and 2 being a 30-foot wide permanent open space at the northernmost portion of the project site for serving as a natural buffer, and that there shall not be any mechanical equipment, including but not limited to air conditioning units, transformers, etc., directly located east of the principal building on the project site. High-impact screening based on the ordinance shall be provided, and conditions 1 and 2 shall be subject to a declaration of restrictions recorded at the Erie County Clerk's Office.
okay, so with that, is there anything further on the question? I'd ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Culpa.
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Yes.
Councilmember Berger.
Yes.
Councilmember Zucala.
Yes.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public expression. I'm going to motion to open public expression at this time. We'll start with the list and then move on from there.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, no list? Does that,
List.
I got it.
Oh, it got moved.
No, you got it.
okay. Dan Gagliardo.
Good evening. Good evening. Oh, I'm sorry? Okay. Good evening, Supervisor Culpa, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, and town board members. My name is Dan Gagliardo, and I'm a resident of Williamsville. I want to share my thoughts and offer suggestions regarding the recent press conference on April 23rd concerning the former Westwood property. First, I would like to express my appreciation to County Executive Mark Poloncarz for providing an update on the property's status. It was encouraging to hear that the site is in good condition and that the projected cost to restore it to operational status is approximately $7 million. I also appreciate his noting that discussions around this project have been ongoing for over a year. That said, I found it surprising that the update came from the county executive rather than from our local leadership, Supervisor Culpa or Deputy Supervisor Lavin. Given the significance of this property to Amherst residents, it raises the question, why haven't there been periodic updates from the town to keep the residents informed? Additionally, I'd like to address a couple points mentioned during the press conference. The allocation of the $3.7 million in county taxpayer dollars for the project came as news to many residents. Was this budget transfer communicated publicly prior to the announcement, and is the town entitled to this money? The Amherst residents would like to see a total project cost, proposed benefits, and a risk analysis. Has one been completed? Given that there are town board members who are employed by Erie County, I respectfully urge them to consider recusal from any votes on this matter to avoid potential conflicts of interest. Transparency continues to be a major concern amongst Amherst residents, and this situation unfortunately feels like another example of decisions being made without meaningful community input. The Amherst Town Code, Chapter 7, Amherst Central Park Task Force, Section 7.3 clearly states that the task force was created to engage residents, encourage public input, and promote recreational use of the Amherst Central Park. These objectives should remain at the forefront of all decisions involved in this land. To that end, I propose placing a referendum on the upcoming ballot to allow Westwood to remain forever green or have it designated by the state. This will ensure that the residents never have to go through what they have experienced over the past 10 years. Amherst residents deserve the right to vote on to ensure that the property surrounding their home stays forever green. There may be other, more financially responsible alternatives that still align with the desired recreational objectives. Now that there appears to be a consensus around developing the area into a golf course and park, an idea I supported from the beginning, it may be the right time to revisit this process. We may want to consider once again making Westwood a town golf course, developing Audubon as a county course, and further development, or present the current concept renderings and approach experienced developers who may be interested in creating sustainable project that adds to the tax base. One last sentence. This is an opportunity to meaningfully involve the community and move forward in a transparent and constructive way. Let's work together to ensure that this valuable town asset is developed wisely and responsibly in a manner that benefits all Amherst residents. Thank you for your time.
Shelley Stratz.
Good evening, everybody. Shelley Stratz, Town of Amherst. You all look well. I didn't plan on coming tonight, but after hearing the news and listening to interviews, it brought back a couple years ago. I'm first going to direct this to you, Sean, and rightfully so. 2 years ago, there were people here to be here for the budget. Jackie, you were late, if you remember. You couldn't be here at the time. You introduced a transparency local law, as a matter of fact, of how this town board would now act with transparency. It's not even funny. It's sad. We talk about people who are going to need to move into homes and build homes for their parents. I don't know about you, but I was raised by a single mom, and I let her live next door, and we took care of her. I do a lot of volunteer work. You probably know, Angela, how it works. You know how many parents I've had to sit with that their kids were they went somewhere else to live? But yet here, we're talking about the golf course. We're talking about green space. We're talking about what people have sued for, fought for, and they have been totally ignored. But then came that resolution, and I thought you meant it, but I was mistaken. Because you want to run for supervisor, and I admire that, whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, transparency starts here, and it starts now. It should have started then, and you still lack transparency. And Mike, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to transparency. Like the night after the election, and you said, oh, you might need to hear about this. You might want to learn about this. You wanted to share something. I don't know what it was. I didn't win the election, and I'm glad. I'm here to tell you that you need to do that referendum. People paid for that referendum, not 104, 1104, or whatever it was. People paid. People worked so that it would give you, the board, the elected officials, the information that was critically needed of what the people want. We are not like a business, okay? You work for the people. Disrespect, number one. It disrupts everybody's life, okay? Number two, there's so many unfinished projects in the town. And we want to give this to the county to collect our hard-earned tax dollars and keep it? We don't need them to take over a golf course. There are plenty of people. I looked into it years ago, and there were people, companies throughout the country that wanted to come. And I've even mentioned it to you, Brian. But to give it to the county, what these people have worked for, do you think Cheektowaga cares, Clarence cares about what Amherst gives up? No. Earn your respect. Do not give this to the county of Erie. Sorry, Mark Polencars, find another way to do something, but let the people decide what they want. And Brian,
Okay,
your
thank you,
legacy as a what you do is amazing. Don't let it be destroyed by this last movement.
Okay, thanks, Shelley.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is not appropriate to be clapping and hooting and hollering.
Andrea Morgani. I'm sorry, I said it. Okay.
Good evening, Supervisor Culpa, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, and Town Board members. My name is Andrea Morganti, and I live in Gettsville. As an Amherst resident, I look forward to finally having a functioning golf course and accessible park at the Westwood Country Club property. The announcement should be viewed as a positive development after all the details have been made public and answered. The following questions that as a resident I have regarding Mark Polenkars's plan to take over the Westwood property are: the CNS Company's environmental report dated 2017 and 2024 states that in accordance with NISDEC guidance, any redevelopment will require some level of remediation. Who will be responsible for the remediation that appears that needs to take place? Will it be the county or the town? Revenue from the Audubon golf course fees in 2024 was over $300,000. Erie County Parks charges $340 for a season pass, and the Audubon golf course charges $799 for new members and $699 for a renewal of a season pass. Now, what are the anticipated charges for the Westwood Country Club? It would appear that the fees would be potentially less than the Audubon golf course. And can you please tell me how you plan to deal with this potential loss of revenue? And for clarification, to the town residents, let's examine the last 3 projects that have been brought before the board and how these decisions have affected the Amherst residents. First, on December 2nd, 2024, this board approved resolutions to purchase 218 and 330 Maple Road for $5.9 million. Now, if memory serves me correctly, there was no public discussion or subject of a public hearing. Second, December 16th, 2024, this board approved to spend $28,000 per month for a new youth center at 1350 Eggert Road. Now, again, if memory serves me correctly, there was no public discussion or subject to a public hearing. Now, the final part that I like to refer to as the trifecta is on April 23rd, the residents found out that there was a deal that has been ongoing for 1 year with regards to the restoration of the country club. Once more, if memory serves me, there was no public discussion. But would you mind clarifying for me, since this deal is so new, if we plan on having a public hearing? It was indicated that there was public input on the original plans for the Westwood property. Now, my confusion on this issue, and if you wouldn't mind clarifying it for me, was this based on the information from the Amherst Central Task Force or the permissive referendum that was submitted by the Amherst Concerned Citizens? Now, please don't take this statement as being judgmental, but it proves the county has to bail out the town of Amherst. Now, because I'm a skeptical person, it makes me wonder if this is happening because of the election. Supervisor Culpa, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, could you please let the residents know if there are any other major projects are being developed that the taxpayer should be aware of? We respectfully request that going forward, there be public input and that residents be given a seat at the table for these latest projects. And with all due respect, the residents would appreciate an answer to these questions. Now, to make it easier for you, I have a copy. Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor Kolpa, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, and Amherst Town Board members. My name is Mary Dormer, and I reside in Gettsville. I'm going to go back once again to the presentation that I made on March 10th, 2025. At the April 7th, 2025 meeting, only one of our questions was answered, and I would like to have a response to the unanswered questions at this time. Once more, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, please feel free to respond also because this is part of the project that you voted for. So here are the questions. Number one, Supervisor Kolpa, you gave us as a reason as to why the Boys and Girls Club was removed from the 4110 North Bailey facility because of non-payment of utility bills and monthly rental. I've reviewed the lease for the Boys and Girls Club and cannot find anywhere, again, in the agreement that the Boys and Girls Club is responsible for utility bills. However, we would like to see documentation as an amendment to the lease that your statement on the utility bills payment is correct. We are aware that the Boys and Girls Club did pay the utilities from 2015 to 2017, even though it wasn't in their lease agreement. The current process is the town has been paying them from 2018 until the present. At this point in time, this does not appear to be a valid reason for the Boys and Girls Club to be removed from the premises. Number two, are you aware that O'Connell and Company have not yet paid the $1 per year lease since signing the agreement? Also, with regard to O'Connell and Company, their lease indicates that they are responsible for grass cutting, which is currently being done by our town. O'Connell and Company, in accordance to their lease, have still not provided a neighborhood arts program or a speaker series. Does this mean that they are in violation of their lease? And will their lease be terminated? Number three, we asked what happened between the agenda published on February 1st, 24, and when the meeting took place on February 5th, 2024, regarding the rezoning of the 1350 Egger Road project. Could you please, we would appreciate, please, a response to that question. Number four, we also asked what transpired between February 5th, 2024 and December 16th, 2024, quite a long time in between those two dates, for the town and the developer to change the plans from townhouses to a youth center. We would also appreciate a response to that question. And finally, why are the building plans for the youth center dated February 2022 before the decision was made to not build the townhouses and while you were looking for alternative sites? Supervisor Kolpa, can we expect an answer to these questions? Deputy Supervisor Lavin, maybe you can offer some feedback as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Plonka.
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. At the last meeting, a question arose about an editorial in the April 3rd edition of the Bee having to do with candidates for office supposedly campaigning at town board meetings. I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to that editorial, so I went back and I read it. It provides almost no useful information at all with respect to the right of candidates for public office to speak at any public meeting. Talks about the open meeting law requiring that only public business be discussed at meetings like the town board. Well, that's exactly what those candidates discussed that night. My recollection is they specifically discussed 1350 Eggert Road. They quite clearly addressed that issue, as Ms. Dormer just addressed again here tonight. And the mere fact that they mentioned the fact that they're candidates for office has absolutely no bearing at all on the fact that they discussed a matter of public business before that board. Now, the interesting thing about the B article is they mentioned Section 108 of the Public Officers Law, or the Open Meetings Law. And that section makes clear that the Open Meetings Law doesn't apply to meetings like political caucuses. What they failed to mention is that given the makeup of this board can go into a political caucus if it wants to, discuss every bit of town business outside of the public and outside of the press And that's totally legal under the open meetings law. So to sit here and say that, well, section 108 does this, that, or the other thing is immaterial. They mentioned the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act is a law that prevents federal employees in the executive branch of government from running political activities on work time. That's pretty much all the Hatch Act does. To the extent that it reaches local government at all, it only applies to executive branch employees who are working in local governments in positions that are almost exclusively funded by the federal government. The Hatch Act has nothing at all to do whether a local candidate for office can come up and speak before a public body. It simply doesn't. And to throw that out there is nonsense. It's nonsense, pure and simple. And the B article says, well, let's see, it says, further, laws like the Hatch Act prohibit federal, state, and other government employees from engaging in any political discussion whatsoever at a public board meeting. It does no such thing. The Hatch Act doesn't do that. And the law doesn't even, or the article doesn't even mention laws like the Hatch Act. There's no mention of any other law in that article that controls the right of a candidate for public office to come up and speak before a local board about the issues pending before that board. And the notion that somehow or another they can't do it is nonsense.
Charles Herr.
Good evening. First time here. Nice to see you. Charles Hurd, 29 Paul Drive. My wife and I have been living there for 25 years. I'm actually here today because we're having an issue with flooding. The drainage is not able to handle any kind of serious storm. If you recall, Monday we had a heavy rainstorm, but it was an hour and a half. Nothing crazy. Our street flooded, which means all the water, because all the sump pumps are running, it's coming out of the bubbler because all the pipes under the ground are full. I mean, when I say flooded, it's a lake. The street is a lake. So we're pumping, the water's going into the street, but there's nowhere to go, obviously, because it is a lake. It's rolling back into people's houses. So this, probably the past 7, 8, 10 years has gotten worse and worse, and it's just continually getting worse. I'll give you some examples of what happened. There's a couple in their 80s on the corner. Their house flooded. Right now, ServPro is there, still trying to dry the house out, make sure they don't get mold. They had to get a new furnace, new water heater. The lady next to her, her house flooded. It's flooded. I mean, her garage flooded. Her house is flooded before. I'm 3 houses down from them, which the drain is like 3 houses from my house. I had to get a second pump, put it in my driveway in the drain to pump to the sanitary to stop my house from flooding. So this happens on the other side of the street. It's a kind of an S street, and people on the other side of the street, gentleman's house flooded, insurance didn't cover it. He had to get a water heater. He has to have his floor replaced, all his drywall. Man next door to him just bought the house, and he put $40,000 into the drainage inside and out. He got water. So the problem is, I guess I could have told him he can spend as much as he wants on drainage, but there's nowhere for the water to go. I've called the highway department. The highway department told me that Amherst is allowing people to build too many houses, too many subdivisions, and there's nowhere for the water to go. So this is what they're telling me. There's nowhere for the water to go. Now, I don't know if wherever the water's going, I'm actually a pipe fitter by trade. I don't know if because where the water's going is full or all these new pipes that are coming in there can't handle it. They're all tapping into one pipe, and that pipe isn't big enough to handle the water, so it's backing up. So I'm here asking for some help, some support, get somebody to look at this because I can't leave town. I'm scared my house will flood. I don't know what's going to happen. And you know how bad mold is. And
So I just have a couple questions because that was one of the communities that that we had flooding in. A couple of the other communities had a little bit quicker reaction. Do you know offhand? You called the highway department during the flood?
someone did. They did come out. They got there maybe hour, 2 hours after it stopped. You know, once I got mine pumped out, I started taking pumps down to people on the street to help them get theirs pumped out.
do you know if somebody, aside from calling highway dispatch, did anybody call fire dispatch or emergency services?
Emergency services came and they did some pumping.
Okay.
Fire department came, did nothing
Okay.
at all. The problem is, even if they come during the storm, there was one day I had to sit there pumping for a whole day.
I understand.
Where they, I'm not just saying, there's nowhere to put the water except in the sanitary.
So your subdivision, do you know if it outlets on the French Road or if it outlets into a creek or a drainage ditch?
I don't know exactly where it goes. I'm off of French Road near Sweet Home in North French.
Could you send, or have you already sent my office an email about that
I
scenario?
believe I did, because somebody called me back and somebody told me that somebody would call me and it was
Okay,
and
so
they called me and they said they're gonna come out and then they didn't come out.
if you send an email, we'll follow up with engineering. Highway does some of the work. Engineering's responsibility is to look at the actual underground infrastructure and do the approvals for subdivision. So I would say if you would forward that email to the council members as well, we'll ensure that we have a conversation this week with engineering.
I'll follow up with
I'm not sure I
engineering.
sent an email. I think I just called.
Okay.
I just called because I
What's,
just wanted
That's
to
fine.
get through as soon as possible.
can I get your address on the street?
29 Paul, Paul Drive.
Yeah, I know where the street is. I just didn't catch the number.
I'm sorry.
And where on the street is the flooding? Are you like close to French or further in?
It's probably halfway down. It's kind of an S street.
Yeah.
So when you come down from North French, like the first 3 houses are good. And then all of a sudden, all the way to the corner where the S is, that floods. And all the way around the back, it floods. Some of the houses have driveways that decline.
Okay.
And those are the ones that get all the water.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
follow up with engineering
I'd like
this
to leave my
week.
number so somebody can get back to me if I don't.
If you could give our attorney your number, and we will, on your way out, and we'll make sure that we get back to you.
All right. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Mr. Supervisor, just the other thing is, sir, the elderly couple you spoke about, I want to give you a phone number to call our office. There may be some community development program that they could take advantage of for
Yeah, 'cause
rehabilitation.
The man is almost invalid. He's in a, she's taking care of him. He's just in a walker. He can't do anything at all.
I'm going to give you a phone number. When you come over, I give your information to the town attorney. Whenever.
Sure. Please.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dave Howard?
Dave Howard, 194 Roycroft Boulevard. The supervisor has mentioned on several occasions that Damon University is getting the same deal as some organizations get at the Northtown Center. This happened at the last meeting. Could the supervisor please give us the names of the organizations that are using the Northtown Center for $1 a year? Is it UB Men's Hockey, Amherst Youth Hockey, Saba, Performance Sports, Spybox Grill? Are any of these people getting the use of the Northtown Center for $1 a year? Please, could you answer that tonight with your answers to questions? Thank you.
Okay. Danny Farrell?
Good evening, Town Board and Supervisor. My name is Danny Farrell. I live on Park Haven Drive in Amherst. As you can see, I don't have anything written down tonight. I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants tonight. I was listening to WBEN, and I was listening to Mr. Laban's interview. And the subject of Maple Road came up, and I'd like to address that Maple Road issue. I've lived here in the town of Amherst for about 30 years, and it seems to me that during that time, Maple Road between North Forest and Millersport Highway is absolutely atrocious. If I recall, I think it was repaved completely at one point, But it seems that the same issues are evolving from time, all the time. What's happening, and I can only speculate because I don't know, I didn't build the road. I'm assuming that perhaps there's concrete that's underneath the asphalt. And it's built similar to a freeway where you have sections, that's like this here, this here, this here, so on and so on. Between that section, and it's the only section probably in Erie County that's like that. And every time it's paved, what happens is that concrete underneath with those sections keep interrupting the flow of the traffic. So when you're driving down the road, you just hear a thump, 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 thump. It's put wear and tear on your car. So who does the maintenance on Maple Road? Is it the town of Amherst or is it Erie County? All right, town of Amherst?
No, it's a county road, sir.
Okay, it's a county road. Okay, so what you guys need to do is you need to talk to county. You need to talk to pulling cars. Yeah, I'm serious, okay? That road has been atrocious for decades. It needs to be addressed. If there's concrete that's underneath, the concrete needs to be taken out. You should put a new base on there and then put new asphalt. And I don't think that you're going to have that continuing issue. So that is my complaint to you. Get on the ball. Get with county. If they own the road, tell them to fix it and fix it right. Thank you.
Okay, Rick Bosch.
Good evening, town board members. I came here tonight to thank you for remembering my brother Mark, a lifelong resident of the town who started with the highway department when he was 18 years old, and he worked there for 37 and a half years. And I think that it's nice that you remember some of these retirees and the ones that have passed, because I don't think the highway department gets the thank yous it deserves. When we're sleeping at night in the middle of the winter and they're out there plowing our roads, or as this gentleman talked about the flooding, the sewer department is out there waist deep in water and mud. They're not getting the thanks they get. And this town is large, and I mean, we cover so much area, and there are still problems, sewer problems, all that stuff. And they're out there all the time trying to help us get through all the days and nights there are. And I want to thank you for that. I watch every YouTube meeting that this town has. I have concerns, okay? And I don't want to stand here all night and talk about all the bad things, because there are some good things. But the one thing Danny had talked about, Maple Road. Yes, I know it's a county road. Charlie Sickler, when he was the county engineer, was out there and they were doing tests up and down Maple to try and fix those joints. I don't know whatever happened, because nothing got fixed. Even where they tried the different things, we're still getting those bumps and everything else. And I agree with Danny that somebody from the town has to push the county to do more. And maybe it's going to cost $50 million to rebuild the whole road, but it's one of our major east-west corridors. So I just think somebody from the town needs to follow up with the county. And again, thank you for remembering my brother Mark. I miss him a lot.
I would like to say sorry for your loss and okay, Zen Lu.
Check. Good evening. Supervisor Kalpa, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, and the board members of town board. My name is Chen Liu. I live in 115 Britannia Drive, East Amherst. I came to Buffalo and worked for UB since 2008. I have a daughter. She's studying at the East Amherst. So I would like to make some comments about 3 aspects of the concerns related to the park project. I'm talking about the former golf country club. So number 1 is that I have been honored to serve the local Chinese community for quite a few years. When I was the president of Chinese club, I was looking for a place for community members to gather in the summer for picnic, for union. And guess what? Every time I was trying to looking for a place in Amherst, because most of us live in this town, we couldn't find a place. Rarely we were able to have a picnic party in the outdoor space in the town. Very often we went to Clarence, we went to Tonawanda. The main reason for that was this town does not have the capacity. By capacity, I mean a large enough pavilion to house maybe over 50 participants. So that's surprising. And I have raised this concern within my community and some of the board members, but I wanted to make it public. I think it's very worthwhile to have outdoor place, not just for golf players. I do have friends who are avid golf players. I understand it's a sport that everybody can enjoy, but there are a lot more people who are not golf players. A lot of more people, they came from, like me, first generation immigrant, they came from different background. They just want a simple place to meet, to make friends, right? Everybody is welcome. So that's first concern. I mean, I cannot represent everybody. I just have this concern that the usage of the place should consider more than just people who have been living here for many, many years and who happen to be golf players. Did I overtime?
You have 30 seconds.
All right. So very simply, I'll skip the last point. The second point about transparency, I totally concur that transparency is utterly important. But guess what? In the time of when we're living now, we have the great challenge that is information overload, not the lack of transparency. I know there's a huge amount of document on the websites, huge amount of news articles on the websites, and the videos. Simple people just don't have time to comprehend it, right? So my recommendation, just before I came to this meeting, I was looking up to AI, all right? Large language model. I checked Perplexity. I don't know whether you guys have heard about it. It's a very common search engine, but with AI. I asked, do you know anything about Amherst Town's Golf Club and the Central Park project? It gives me all the details without extra, mumbo jumbo words.
Okay.
So why not we use that? Thank you.
Thank you. Grace Connor.
My name is Grace Connor. I live in Amherst. Is this better? Okay. Supervisor Kalpa, Deputy Lavin, and board members. This has been said many times tonight. It's going to seem like an obnoxious repeat, but please listen. Transparency. Do you know what it is? Being open, honest, and candid without any hidden agendas or secrets. It involves willingly sharing one's inner thoughts and feelings and experiences, fostering trust, vulnerability in relationships. We, the town people, have been asking for many months. This board hasn't been transparent. Board members should work to the best of one's ability as well as board members can. Your expertise, your proficiency is lacking. We're tired of being deceived and lied to. The board works behind closed doors. It's time to be transparent. Perform your duties. Complete a task with transparency. Integrity, a state of wholeness, both internally and in one's dealings with others, characterized by honesty, truthfulness, and adherence to God's principles. He's the one that makes it possible. When is the supervisor and board members going to adhere to these principles? I'd like an answer to that.
Jennifer Snyder-Haas.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Snyder-Haas, and I live at 185 Fairways. I want to thank the county for its leadership and intervention with the Westwood property. We applaud the basic concept plan that would limit development to golf and passive recreation, particularly the return of golf to the site. We do feel that the nature park would be better by the creek, which has more wildlife and scenic areas, would be closer to the parking lot, avoiding parking on residential streets, and would be closer to the clubhouse, complementing its anticipated future public use. Either way, I and other adjacent landowners have not been spoken with to date about the plans and would like to be actively engaged with the planning details, especially those that are near our property lines. We do wish that the town or county would consider an 18-hole municipal golf course on the site, which would keep all of it revenue producing. A nature trail could also be considered in this design. Then Audubon could potentially be the 9-hole course with the other 9 holes turned into a more multi-use park with both passive and more active uses, such as sure to be popular walking, running ovals, some sporting activities, and picnic areas, just like this gentleman was suggesting. This land is less appealing for golf than Westwood, has better public access directly off Maple Road, like the successful town parks in Clarence and Cheektowaga, is non-residential, and is closer to UB, which would tie UB more into the fabric of the Amherst community. This would also unlock revenue to pay for the park. About 50 acres of the land on Audubon that the town alienated several years ago, which is not part of the current Audubon layout of the course, could be sold at fair market value to assist with this effort. With an 18-hole course secured on the Westwood property, a partnership with Forest Lawn could again be considered for Audubon, which would create a beautiful passive park area and create revenue at the same time. We also support the long-range idea of returning the Westwood Clubhouse to restaurant banquet service, and also think a boutique inn could work, like the Glen Iris Inn at Letchworth. Again, all revenue producing. I do appreciate the concerns raised tonight about the town giving up the land without getting any of its purchase price back and potential lost revenue from Audubon. I do hope that the town and county are talking about a potential financial sharing agreement, a sharing in the profits, or at least some financial arrangement that will be publicly discussed. So thank you to the county for finally moving this project in the right direction. We can't change the mistakes of the past, but we can still achieve the true Amherst Central Park vision while exercising fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry Shad.
Jerry Shad, 199 Meadowview Road, here in Williamsville. I've been a 29-year resident. I've been a proponent of doing something in terms of a park and maybe save some golf on Westwood for at least a decade or more. And I've watched the town struggle with how to get that done, with everybody at every cycle coming up with a different idea than the then current board was advocating. And that has happened every year for the past decade and is repeating itself a bit tonight. I want to say thanks to the board, because this apparent arrangement or negotiation with the county gives us two things that I've hoped we would get: green space and some golf, but not too much to occupy the entire property. It'll make it very passive. It'll increase the value of the surrounding properties. It's a project that I would like to see come to fruition next year. This is the kind of project that I think we should all be behind, and not be trying to argue about 10 ways to Sunday as to why we shouldn't now do it, and yet come up with item 45, why we want to do something different, because there's something on the table that's being proposed. I think it'll be good for Amherst. I think it's good government that you've worked through all of the challenges that have been brought on the prior approaches to this. It represents a board that is working hard to change its approach when there are voices heard from the town residents, and that clearly you hear. And you certainly hear a lot of negative voices if this is typical of your meetings. I haven't been here for over a year. People who will vocally argue, no, 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 you can't do it your way. But I do think this is good for the town. I think it represents a good vision for the town. It represents leadership, because you have to lead even if people criticize. You've got to try to do the right thing. And I think this project is the right project. I'll benefit from it. My grandchildren will benefit from it. And I think you ought to just complete the job on this one. Thank you.
Tom Frank.
Good evening, Supervisor Brian Culpa, and town board members. Thank you for my 3 minutes. So my name is Thomas Frank, and I'd like to comment on your what was brought up this afternoon at the meeting regarding the May is the building public safety month. That's interesting. That this project, as far as the Amherst State Park, as far as the environmental education center in the asbestos contaminated property that the town owned for like some 20 years, it's time to get in there, and that what I'm advocating is engagement in an intergovernmental cooperation agreement, an effective agreement for the Glen Park Joint Board and the Amherst State Park, that the Ellicott Creek is the lifeblood of the village of Williamsville and the town of Amherst, as far as the built environment, as far as the infrastructure, the water lines, the sewer lines, and the highway storm sewers, that it has a function. If you watch on public television, Nature program, they had the national perspective. It's estimated that over the next 20 years, the management and maintenance of the infrastructure is going to be on the order of $4 trillion. As far as anticipating that as far as I'm advocating for a resolution of the Glen Park Joint Board as the lead agency for the Amherst Central Park Greenway, which is there were a couple of meetings. One was as far as the New York State Greenway Parks, Trails, Cultural Heritage Preservation, and the interconnections between the Glen Park, the Amherst State Park, the Westwood Pharmaceutical Country Club, and Ellicott Creek. That this is a part of a statewide program. That there's like 2,500 miles, and as far as the dam out there that's fallen down and the effect, as far as the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Well, and the last thing that I'd like to mention has to do with Regional Economic Development Council, as far as the projects that they're calling for. Right, it has to go through you, and as far as the intermunicipal cooperation agreement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, you do good work.
Thanks. Jane
And
Cox.
yeah, we're looking at a 5-year development of $10 million, and it extends through 2050 as far as the relicensing of the Niagara Power Project.
Got it.
In
Thanks,
no
Tom.
uncertain terms. It doesn't end at Niagara Falls Boulevard.
Thanks.
There are underground streams where you're sitting. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tom.
Okay.
Okay,
Hope I didn't run my mouth too much.
okay, Jane Cox.
Jane Cox, Harlem Road. Let's see. There's a lot of people in this room that are questioning all the details about the Westwood project. Probably most of all, who's going to have ownership of the property if we have bonded the money to purchase it? Does it then belong to Amherst, or is the county just going to manage it, or what are the details going to be? And I'm sure they're yet to be worked out, but those are some of the questions. But I'm here to talk about the Main Street Corridor Study, which you've already almost consent voted on to approve this afternoon. And the resolution says that the study is being accepted as a guiding document, and I'm not quite sure I understand what the definition of guiding document would be. So if you could explain how it will be used. Many of the Snyder and also Eggertsville residents spent a lot of time at workshops in January and March of last year, and gave a lot of input to the consultants about this project and how we are all affected, because we are all affected by what happens on Main Street. And we want to be involved with any future Main Street projects, as far as being informed ahead of time, as far as being invited to meetings when there's things like New York State DOT talking about the 290 and the interchanges being changed, and how that will affect our traffic problems, which we already have. Let's see. So basically, you're taking it in as guidance, but as I would understand that to mean it's not going to totally affect your decision-making.
Yeah, I'm going to explain that when we get to the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Mary Jane Lack.
As we're all, I'm sorry, Mary Jane Zach, Bauman Road, Williamsville. As we're all sitting here, sometimes the microphone, depending upon how we're speaking into it, you can't hear the person speaking what they prepared. It's all garbled. You all listen very attentively. Pretty much no matter what we say, you've already decided, and even if we don't want it or feel we need more information, you do it anyway. So it's very confusing as a person who is a detailed person and has rationale with the decisions that are made in order to give it to the company, heads of companies, so that they're comfortable with how you came about the decision. So as I was jotting down some thoughts, will there be a change of power, decision-making power, which will influence and control the taxpayers through their wallets? Control the taxpayers, local town of Amherst versus Erie County, and what's going to play out with our beautiful park and what you're going to be deciding. This is how it's going to be, and we have to follow as robots. I think I would like to see, and all the people in this building would like to see, the financial benefits of how you derive the town of Amherst keeping the rule and the authority control, or giving it over to Erie County. Why is one, what are the finances? Because I know each of you believe in bottom line. Knowledge is power. And the only way we as taxpayers can go, what we can go by is your truth, what you say here and what you do, and through the ballot box. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Dennis Hoban.
Good evening, everyone. Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive. Sat here for a while, listened to all the people talking this evening, some people talking about the Westwood Country Club. I think maybe what they don't understand is that this is a done deal. It's, you've been talking to the county for a year, so it's pretty much over with. But the devil's in the details. I listened to Brian on the radio, Supervisor Culpa, and he said that when Joe Beamer asked him if there was a lease, he said, well, it's kind of a lease. I mean, I have no idea what that means. It's kind of a lease. I mean, you either have a lease or you don't. So I think the number one question, Supervisor Culpa, would be, we paid $7.8 million for this piece of property about almost 4 years ago. And we've been paying on the bond for 4 years, and we need to get that money back, and we need to get money so that we can pay the bond off. And that's really the only way we should make a deal with the county, is if they're going to reimburse us for the $7.8 million. You have to remember that the town of Amherst is not a charity, it's a township. We can't keep, well, maybe we can if we keep bonding, but I don't know how long you're going to keep kicking this can down the road. You keep borrowing money, and like this sports complex for Damon University for $1, and some of these other things you got going on for $1, it's ridiculous. It's pure insanity. I think maybe you could tell me, maybe the town clerk can, we're about $220 million in debt. I think the next largest town is Cheektowaga. I think they're $46 million in debt, and they're using their money to rebuild infrastructure, provide services. They're doing things that are logical. The town of Amherst is not. I recall last November, I sat over here, Supervisor Culpa came up to me, it was around Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving, told me this wonderful story. You know, he started out, I think, once upon a time, and he started telling me this story about how we were going to, the town was going to buy a piece of property on Maple Road, the old gun club, for $6 million, and then sell it to UB, or I think it was UBMD, I'm not sure. And I said, boy, that sounds great, you know. We're going to have these softball diamonds for the girls softball league. And then I said, well, okay, great. You got all this in writing? Brian said, well, no, I don't have it in writing. I mean, I even got up that night and said, I don't know how you could roll the dice with $6 million of taxpayer money. But anyway, these are just examples of the ridiculous way this town is run. I'm sorry, but, you know, and all 5 of your faces are on this stuff. It's ridiculous, you know. I'm really getting tired here. I don't want to keep raking you guys over the coals, but you're doing a pretty good job of it yourselves, quite frankly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mike Kozlowski.
Everybody, Mike Kozlowski, Fruhoff. I wanted to speak to an item on the agenda today, Resolution 2055-444, which is the Main Street Corridor Project. As part of my role with Build for Snyder, for about the past year, I've been writing a newsletter about what's going on in and around Snyder, and I wanted to share something I recently wrote in the April edition. As we know, Main Street is controlled by New York State, which makes this proposal aspirational, a guiding document, a statement that outlines what Amherst stands for. It should be the very best possible. Therefore, the town should not adopt this proposal as is. There are too many imperfections in the plan and too many opportunities to improve left on the table. This project is a real chance at placemaking. It does not suggest we implement many items that would make Main Street in Snyder and Eggertsville a better place. Examples include separated bike lanes on both sides of the road, narrowing the vehicle lanes to slow vehicles, adding traffic roundabouts for safer vehicles and pedestrian crossings, dedicated public transit lanes, pinch points around the urban centers, or even removing vehicle traffic lanes. Before I learned about concepts like human scale development and the difference between a street and a road, or active transportation corridors and the financial productivity of high density areas like Snyder and Eggertsville versus financial insolvency of the post-war suburbs, I probably would have thought that it was a fine proposal. Not great, but fine. As I've become more educated in what makes a community great, it's not how quickly one can drive from point A to point B. It's human-scaled, walkable, bikeable, public transit-oriented, and safe environment that favors people over cars. It is possible to achieve, and it's cheaper to build, but requires bravery to stand up against our decades-long default behavior of prioritizing car infrastructure and dollars above all else. At the beginning of the project, vehicle speed data was shared with the public. The average speed was 44 miles an hour. According to the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, a pedestrian hit at 45 miles an hour has a 90% chance of sustaining severe injury. Main Street has a traffic speed of 44 miles an hour. Lowering speed should be our major priority. I would like my neighborhood to be a neighborhood where one can stumble upon a news store, a great pub, or a lunch spot. However, this was our chance to achieve that. I think we can have a better return on our tax dollars to support local businesses, reduce infrastructure expenses, and it's generally a missed opportunity to make Amherst better. I use my car daily, but would like the option not to, which isn't realistic where we live. Well, not anymore. It was about 100 years ago. This is a milquetoast proposal, and we should not be endorsing it as the best possible vision for Amherst. We can do better.
Okay, thanks. Jerry Szynski.
Good evening, Jerry Szynski, 174 Brush Creek Road. Talking about the, interested in the Maple Road and Young's development there on the corner. And just a little bit more concern, I'm concerned about the, a couple of things on that project. One would be the coverage in the back, the buffer zone. I'm looking to request that it's a little bit more than 30 feet. I think I'm looking for like 75 if possible. My neighbor backs up to that property. I'm adjacent to the northeast edge of it. And I would like to also show my concern about the traffic issues. As far as the Young's Road, I've seen many accidents there. It shows 2 driveways on that. I'm looking to just ask if it could be 1 driveway towards the north. And that would be backing up to the very edge of where it's the buffer is, just for safety, traffic safety that way. And then, excuse me, if there's a possibility as far as fencing, maybe 6 foot, I think that's included. I'm not positive. I didn't see the plans. And then also some brush replacement of some trees and so forth there. So those are my concerns. That's it. I hope you guys have a better night.
Thanks.
Thank
So,
you.
Jerry, I just want to explain the action on the board agenda was a rezoning. Some of those items were captured. Some of them are really planning board issues.
Okay.
So we're going to take your comments tonight and we will forward it to the planning board as part of their review of the site. But I would encourage you to go to the planning board, or talk to the planning board about those specific concerns.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. They deal with the curb cuts.
Okay.
And they'll deal with the final setbacks.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Have a good night.
Okay. All right. Stan Sleva.
Good evening. I'm Stan Sleva. I live at 166 Cranbourne Lane. For purposes of full disclosure, I used to be the town attorney for 6 years, from 2016 to 2022. I noticed that one other speaker here did not mention he was a deputy town attorney. The complaint I heard today was about lack of transparency. I'm wondering what the article they read in the paper that didn't show the transparency regarding the Westwood project. The county executive spoke out as to what he intends to do. The town of Amherst supervisor spoke out what he wants to do. There's no written agreement. It has to be worked out. This is just a proposal. That's all it is. And how more transparent can you be with having a news conference that is published in the newspaper and every TV station carries it? How more transparent can you be? Now, pardon me? Now, I'll talk to you guys because apparently people have read the rules of order and they want to ignore them like they do other rules. You can snicker all you want, but the rules are the rules. And the Felician nuns taught me in St. Hyacin School in Dunkirk, if you break the rules, you're a cheater. So I am for this project moving forward. And whether or not there's going to be a golf course or not, I leave it up to the county to determine because I happen to have personal knowledge of stuff that I can't share that relates to how much it would cost to recreate that golf course. But the reality is, how much more transparent can you be if you have a news conference? I don't understand why people are saying it's not transparent. You want to have a Amherst task force again? We can. I think the supervisor will be happy to have one again. Thank you.
Don Smith.
Good evening, town board members. It was nice to see Stan, and Stan is always spinning the way Stan always spins. Let me know, I understand that when we did the Amherst Central Park, it started way back before your term. It was it's been developing a long time. But about transparency, if there's anything I've ever asked you to be, it's been transparent, and you've never failed to disappoint me. Thank you very much. I appreciate your consistency. But as well as we know, I don't know if it's true, didn't we do a planned unit development for Amherst Central Park? If we did, either that or the city of Troy, one of the two things that essentially takes it out of the purview of the ZBA and the planning board, such that no public hearings are ever done in any way, shape, or form. So if you talk about transparency, why did you have to do a planned unit development if you were thinking about transparency? It wasn't necessary if you wanted transparency, if you wanted public input. It was, I know you gave the rules, you could change the rules and put it closer to the line of X, Y, and Z. But I think we have a problem here with some people who think transparency is whatever we can get away with. And I don't like that concept. I'm not saying you guys did a bad job. I'm not saying you did a good job. You just didn't tell us about what you were doing, period. And people who clap about that stuff, I have no respect for, okay? We are important in the process of our town. Don't diminish us by insulting us. This is not a good thing. We're here because we care. I don't know what you've done. I don't know what the difference between your negotiation is, what it intends mean. I don't know what that means in legally. I don't know what he wants to do, but it's clear you've been doing it for over a year. So that's a negotiation of some sort. I think it's a background negotiation. I understand that you can do that sorts of things. I assume there's been no legal commitments whatsoever been done because you can't do that. So that's still got to be done. The question is, are we going to have any public hearings on this? Are we going to bypass the Zoning Board of Appeals? Are we going to bypass the Planning Board? Is that all going to be bypassed? And are we going to bypass public hearings? That's something you got to tell us about. So thank you very much for listening.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Chris Strangoski, Mill Street. I wanted to go last because I wanted to hear all the comments on Westwood. I've been involved with the town golf program for over 30 years, served as a recreation commissioner 3 times, was honored by 2 bipartisan town boards with proclamations for my work with the golf program. I've been involved with Westwood for over 15 years, and I've seen some of the most interesting things that could possibly happen. I've also owned and operated my own municipal golf course and golf courses. So my phone, when the announcement came, and there's been whispers among the community that the county was going to make a move on the Westwood. Quite frankly, I didn't believe it because of the costs involved. But so my phone rang quite a bit over the weekend, and I just want to bring to the comments of what most of the residents were stating. The number one comment was, why is the town not doing this? Good question. I mean, basically, if it's such a great idea that the county wants to do it, why isn't the town not doing it? At a cost of between $7 million for 9-hole renovation, really it's about $10 million for all 18 holes. Why is the town not doing it? That was the original plan, was for the town to acquire Westwood, and because the present golf course, Audubon, is so archaic and so run down that if it wasn't for the highest rates, it would be financially underwater. But that was the idea, was to preserve Westwood, which is a wonderful piece of property, no question about it. No one will argue that. And make that the town golf course. Then it opens up a lot of opportunities for the town to do with Audubon. Now, I know there's people that want to develop that golf course. That was originally the original plan, was to develop the back end of the Audubon golf course to help pay for all the development. The other question that came about was why only 9 holes by the county? Why not 18? And maybe this board can help me with that, so I can call these people. In terms of the restoration of the golf course, do I think the county could do it? Absolutely. Anybody who's been to Elma Meadows who's a golfer, and I've witnessed it firsthand and seen the restoration that the county did with Elma Meadows, has been truly remarkable. Matter of fact, that golf course was left for dead, and the county executive, because his father plays there a lot, it helped, put millions and millions of dollars and restored that golf course. It is now probably the most played municipal golf course in Western New York. But I think in terms of the time frame, he said it would be available next year. That'll never happen. It takes 2 to 3 years to do a proper restoration. And I'll talk more at the next suspension of rules about
Thanks,
it.
Chris.
Thank you.
Is there anything further? I'm gonna motion to exit public expression. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I do want to make an announcement. There was a question about some smoke smell. There was a fire at the state park. The fire department is responded and is putting it out. That is the smoke smell in the room.
The kids at the back.
Kathy Ecolina, Maple Road. About 4 years ago, I questioned someone who shall be nameless regarding fixing Maple Road. And I was told, between North Forest and Millersport, and I was told we pay the lowest county taxes in the state, and I should move to Wheatfield or Niagara County. Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we do have a consent agenda this evening. It does include the Main Street plans or study. So I'm going to just address what it means in terms of guidance and acceptance. So if the town board were to act in adoption of a plan, it means that we plan to put that plan into motion. Acceptance of the plan allows us to take it in its current condition and basically now use it as a reference. I do think that there is a lot more personally. This is a personal thing. It's not a town board view that should be done with Main Street. I personally favored lane reduction, both dimensional and quantity of lane reduction in favor of turning lane with bike lanes. That is not what is in this plan as a primary alternative. The Main Street study, though, does demarcate an effort to capture as much consensus in the community as the consultants could within a time frame. And we are basically accepting it in terms of guidance and it sort of sets a marker. It says this is an alternative developed by the town through work with residents in the area and we want to set this mark and demarcate this. Ultimately, it is a DOT controlled road. And unlike a plan like Picture Main Street in the village of Williamsville, where that was a village board adopting for the purposes of trying to receive grant funding, this study is not a study that we're currently pursuing grant funding for, but rather represents a way to tell DOT that there is a difference between Main Street and other arterials, and that we need to start to think about Main Street in a different manner. So it's a guiding document. It's not adopted because we don't have the authority to implement, and there is no grant available to implement with. But the acceptance and guiding principles allow us to now start to have the conversation next time DOT is taking on a project to push for something different. That's where, for me, that's what the guiding document and the acceptance lead. I don't know if Dan wants to comment any further on that. Okay. I did want to offer that clarification. Moving forward then with the consent agenda, I'm going to ask our town clerk to please read the consent agenda.
Councilmember Lavin, 1, 2. Councilmember Zucala, 1. Town Attorney, 1. Town Clerk, 1, 2, 3. Building Maintenance, 1, 2, 3. Controller, 1. Contract Compliance, 1, 2, 3, 4. Court, 1. Engineering, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Highway, 1, 2, 3. Human Resources, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Information Technology, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Planning, 1, 2. Police, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sewer Plant, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Youth and Rec, 1, 2, 3. Communications, 1. Consent, 2. Consent, 3. Refer to Attorney and Planning, 4. Refer to Attorney, Planning, and Engineering, 5. Refer to Attorney, Planning, and Engineering, 6. Refer to Attorney, 7. Attorney, 8. Attorney, and 9. Refer to Attorney under Public Improvement Permits. 1, 2, and 3 are all consent. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to motion to adopt tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda, I'm going to motion to move off of our regular agenda for purposes of hearing one suspension item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. At this time, I would like to move that we appoint Jennifer Adams as interim town controller upon the resignation, retirement of Darrell Bramer, our current comptroller. And I so move.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We wish Daryl luck if he were at the work session. Daryl's done a great job for a few years as the town comptroller and as the deputy comptroller prior to that. We wish him luck in his retirement, and we look forward to working with Jennifer, who has been our deputy, is stepping in as interim, we thank Daryl for staying on through our audit. With that, going to motion return to regular agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a second round of public expression. I'm going to motion to open that at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chris Strungaski, Mill Street. I just want to follow back up. So, the county executive is a real golf enthusiast. I know that firsthand. I've played golf with him in the past. And he has done an amazing job with Elma Meadows. I've said that for years, trying to get the town to do the same thing that he's done with Elma Meadows in restoring Audubon, which went nowhere. He also did a phenomenal job with Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland used to be owned by the city, and you would take your life in your hands playing that golf course when the city operated it. It was that bad. He's done an amazing job there. Do I doubt that he has the ability to restore Westwood? No question he will, if the opportunity goes that way. My concerns are this. No one's asked this question. What is the financial impact to the town's golf program if we have another 9-hole golf course right next to the existing golf course of the town? I know the town has a lot of golfers and they're golf crazy, but that is just too much supply. The county is substantially less than what they charge than the town. It's real simple. If you got a better facility at a lower cost, the residents of this town are going to play there, which is going to jeopardize the financial status of the town golf program, and that would be a real tragedy. I still think that the town should go ahead and rebuild on Westwood. It's a $10 million project. I've had experts look at it. And getting back to the restoration, it takes 2 to 3 years to restore a golf course in that shape. And if you don't believe me, just go to USGA, Google golf course restoration, and they'll tell you exactly the time frame for it. In the case of Westwood, you have to pull all the irrigation pipes out of there. They're all rotted, they're shot. They all have to be replaced. You have to replace all the drainage tile out there. They're shot. So it's an extensive project. And for anybody to say that this will happen next year, that's great enthusiasm, but it's not realistic. So I think what we should happen, we've all talked about transparency. Let's have the county executive and the county recreation department come in here to a town hall and explain these plans. And let's discuss the pros and cons of doing this. We've been kicking this thing down the road for so many years. It's ridiculous. It's time to resolve it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Andrew Morganti, Gettsville, New York. We'd like to thank you, Supervisor Culpa, for following through on a suggestion that the Amherst Concerned Citizens made to you to go out for bid for a utilization audit. We are excited that the Troy and Banks was awarded this bid. We are confident the town will receive back funds for the taxpayers from their audit. Thank you very much.
Jane Cox, Harlem Road. In resolution 2025-439, which was the request to use trust and agency funds by the IT department, they would like up to $1,000 to spend on audio-visual equipment for this room. Good idea. Also, in this resolution, it mentions that the amount of the PEG grant money sitting there is over $65,000. So, my question is, can we get this microphone moved over here so that people that are addressing the board can be heard by here and maybe by the back of the room? And can we get a consultant in here to do something about the audio problem that is being caused by the air conditioning and heating system in this room, which makes too much noise and makes it almost impossible for anybody sitting past the second or third row to hear what's going on up here. The only way you can hear it is if you go home and watch YouTube or on your computer. And even then, if I turn my computer speaker up to 100, I still cannot hear everything that's going on. So there's got to be some other adjustment to be made when you're recording these meetings. So if you get a consultant in here that knows something about sound systems, probably have a little money you could pay them and we could fix this problem because everybody is having trouble hearing this. Better microphones for the board that don't have switches on them would be also welcome, because not just you guys, it's the committees that meet in here that don't know enough to turn their microphones on when they're speaking and have to be reminded repeatedly, and you lose a lot of the conversation. Plus the fact that they don't call people up to the podium to speak, and therefore they are not being recorded. And the microphone for the majority of the room is turned down, so if somebody is speaking from the audience, you are not picking it up on the recording of the meetings. So in order for anybody to be heard, they got to be talking into this or to one of those microphones. The whole sound system just is not working. The money is available. Thank you.
Older than her, not really. Shelley Schratz. Okay, thank you for tonight. Thank you for what you do. A lot of people don't know how hard it is to be an elected official and have to explain everything to everybody. I get it. Been there, done that. But I see you differently. I see you as individuals. I see you not just as a supervisor, but as board members. And everybody's voice matters. It helps. It takes it off the department heads and I mean, people come to hear from you. So I just want you to know though, since with this golf course thing, there have been groups of people that have been working with outside people, big companies and things. There's big possibilities for people outside that are really interested in leasing or taking over our golf course instead of giving it to another part of the government. It doesn't make sense to give what the people have worked for to another part of the government that funds other parts of the areas. And if you work with the city, okay, and you were, when they used to have the Board of Supervisors, Brian, remember, we would go to that. And when you go to the Board of Supervisors, every town had a different need. And we'd actually find ourselves in Amherst saying, all right, maybe we don't need that much money because that town needs it more than we do right now. That's where Amherst residents have to come first. And the only way to do it is through the transparency you wrote about, which was admirable. Do a referendum. Let the people tell you what they want. You're gonna vote. People are gonna decide what they're gonna do. But it didn't cost, I mean, it was painful. We don't have musical fare. Okay, fine, but that's not painful. All right, he made out better being downtown with Brian. Do the referendum. Let the people talk so we don't have people saying, well, they want it and we don't want it, we want it and they don't want it. End of story. And don't make us do it. We can do it. We talk about doing it. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, if you want to be a leader, the hardest part about being a leader is you got to lead. And the most painful part is people that you thought cared about you and respected you turn their back on you. And they laugh at you. But at the end of the day, you go home and you know you did your best.
Okay, you too.
Don Smith, North Lawn. First, I want to thank the board for listening tonight. That's valuable to us. It's important to us. But equally as important is you take in what we say and evaluate it. Just think about it. It's important. I don't know how long I've gone over to Amherst Central Park and seen a fence around it. It's been at least, almost 10 years? I haven't been able to set a foot in there. I'm not getting any younger here, okay? All right? I ain't going to be able to walk that place a whole lot if you keep more fences around there. So, whether it's golf or whether it's Passive Park, which I think is deep in Brian's heart, I can tell you he's very happy about that part of it. I don't really know if it's a planned unit development, but I know that there really wasn't much talk that we could do about that. It was done in-house. Most of it is you've got a pattern and a habit of doing this in-house. I understand that. And basically, when you talk out to the public, you can get so much chatter that you get, I guess, lost, and you don't have a coherent vision to put together. I understand how that works. But I'm not getting any younger, I'm telling you right now. And so, what are we really going to have in a year or 2 or 3 or 4? I can't take 5. Come on. You got to work a little harder and give me a little chance to walk in that place, because right now I haven't had a chance. And we go back to the previous administration where they were fighting this thing out for years with their FGISs and all that good stuff. And it's been sitting there like a lame duck. And frankly, I understand something like that is almost impossible to make it fly. Thank you very much.
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. The last couple of weeks, there's been stuff in the Bee and so on about members of this board and whether they're in fact employees of Erie County in addition to being on the board of the town of Amherst. And I gave some information to the clerk. There was a piece in the B, I think it was either a letter to the editor or in the Be Heard column about a member of the board who really wasn't working for the county, that they work instead for the Erie County Library. And up there is the list of Erie County departments and agencies, and right there is the Buffalo and Erie County Library. So clearly the library is, part of county government. It has its own board. It has its own board of trustees, but 10 of them are appointed by the county executive. And if you want further proof that it's a county department, go home and pull out your February tax bill and take a look at the very first line item for collection, the library tax. It's a county agency, and there's no question about it. Another one that another member of the board really doesn't work for the county because supposedly he has a civil service position, as if somehow or another people who have civil service positions don't work for the county but work for someplace else. There's another page I gave. No, not that one. Go. Well, there you go. There's his picture. And he's the Erie County Medical Inspector General. Now, he's clearly a county employee as well, and he's sitting up there on the board. So there's 2 of the 3 people who said, well, they're really not on the board, or they're really not county employees because they're this or that. And with respect to Mr. Lavin, they didn't even try to come up with an excuse for why he wasn't a county employee. They just left him out of the whole thing altogether. Which, everybody knows they work for the county, and that's no surprise. I guess the concern is that, if there's going to be a transfer of the golf course over to Erie County, then there's going to have to be some, mechanism around the town ethics law because, if you're working for the county and you're taking town property and voting to transfer it to the county, that could be considered a benefit to your employer, and I think that's a problem under the town ethics law. I'll leave that to the town attorneys and others to sort out, but it seems that's the case to me. And I agree with Mr. Sliwa earlier when he said that this is all just a proposal right now. This is all just a proposal. The only thing I'd add is believe it when you see it. Believe there's going to be a park there with a golf course on it when you've teed off on the first hole. Until then, don't believe it.
Point of clarification on the question there. The Erie County, Buffalo and Erie County Public Library is an independent organization with its own EIN, its own board of trustees. It is not a county department. I noticed that you truncated the website. It also includes as an Erie County Department ECC, which is not a county organization. I need to make it very clear that the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library is an independent organization not governed or administered by the county executive. Exactly as you just said, the Erie County Library tax is a separate line on your tax bill, codified in Erie County law since 2007 and actually annually renewed since 1992, is the administrative and financial independence of the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library system. It is very clear. I do understand that sometimes the legal nuances are difficult and don't make a lot of sense, and I'm happy to always explain them. There's a full webpage on the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library website that goes into those specifics. However, I do expect more from attorneys or those who have claimed to be attorneys to understand that different organizations operate differently. I do not work under the appointment of the Erie County Executive. I work for a separate entity, and I do not work for Erie County government. As you notice from the title of the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library, it also includes the city of Buffalo. I also do not work for the mayor of Buffalo, nor do I reside in the city of Buffalo, nor do I do that. I work for the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library system, a separate and independent organization. Happy to go into the history and further dedication. Once again, I understand that you found the Erie County departments, which also includes ECC, which is not an Erie County organization. It also includes Stop DWI, which is not an Erie County organization. It is organizations within the Erie County umbrella. The Buffalo and Erie County Public Library is funded primarily by resident property taxes, which is its own line on the tax bill. There were numerous lawsuits and a lot going on. I know everybody talks about being long-term residents of the area. I would have
I would have hoped that people remember these things, but this was back in the red-green budget when the library needed to assert its independence legally because it has always been that way, except the county executive at that time was taking library funds. It has always been administrated. It has always been its own administrative entity. It remains its own administrative entity. I don't get involved in opinions and things like that, but facts are facts. Once again, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. You are not entitled to your own facts. The Buffalo and Erie County Public Library System is an independent organization separate from Erie County government. Thank you.
Okay, all right, please, sir, go ahead.
My name is Robert McLennan. I live on Thames Court in Gettsville. This is my first town board meeting, so I'd like to support, somebody was talking about the microphones up here. I would like to see some improvement with that, because if you're back there, it's really hard to hear it. I'm getting old, but I can still hear usually. But the main reason I'm getting up is to talk about the Westwood situation. I'd like to commend the town board and Mark Poloncarz and the county for putting this thing together. I mean, what are we going to do? Just argue about that piece of property for another 10 years and there's still not a park there for the residents of Amherst? So I'd like to commend you for getting this done, and I'd like to see it get going as soon as possible. I support what you're doing. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor? I would like to thank everybody for your comments this evening. We have a lot to think about as we work towards an agreement with the county that is not on paper yet. And as we continue to move a concept that I think is a pretty good idea forward. So with that, I'm going to motion to adjourn the board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?